This is the AB4WS radio show. Every week, bringing you the exciting amateur radio news and information happening in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana areas.
The AB4WS radio show can be found on the Apple Podcast app or your favorite podcast application. There's a lot of discussion these days about ham radio being a dying old man's hobby. Well, I, for one, am not seeing that at all.
Actually, you just dropped a little bit there, so now you're about a 5-5 QSO. Okay, 7-3, QSO POTA. Kilo Bravo 3, sorry, Victor Oscar, you're 5-9 here in the park, Tom.
QSO, we'll get you at 5-9 in Pennsylvania. Thank you very much for activating it.
Thank you very much, 7-3, QSO POTA. Kilo Romeo 4, Echo Echo, you're 5-9 here in the park.
You're 5-7 in Tennessee, Tango November, over.
QSL, Kilo Echo 8, Sierra Uniform Capra, 7-3 and QSN.
This young man, Logan, K8SUP, has got to be one of the youngest prolific Parks on the Air activators. His current activation, according to his POTA statistics, would be his 9th activation in his 6th park, and already without this event in the log, has over 1,300 POTA activation QSOs. He was first licensed in August of 2021, and Logan has grown as a very polished young ham radio operator. He upgraded to General in July of 2023 and is currently working on CW and studying for his extra class license. Logan loves Parks on the Air and has got to be the youngest activators making a dent in the POTA statistics. His Elmer, who is also his grandfather, is Tom, NV4H, himself a prolific Parks on the Air activator. His POTA statistics show over 190 activations in 53 parks for almost 31,000 activator QSOs and over 2,900 hunter QSOs. Listen out for Logan, K8SUP on the vans, and I am sure you'll be impressed with this young operator. Speaking of POTA, the Murray State University Amateur Radio Club, K4MSU, announced the particulars on this year's 5th anniversary Kentucky Parks on the Air contest to be held on August 10th, 2024 from 1400 hours UTC to 2200 hours UTC. For the particular modes, bands, rules, and all the other important information, go to k4msu.com/KYPOTA. Another young ham radio operator making an impact is Jackson, K6KUK, and the Kids on the Air group, who have been getting a lot of attention after their appearance at the Dayton Hamvention. They have appeared and were mentioned in 2 of Michael KB9VBR YouTube videos. Great job, Jackson and the Kids on the Air group. The Dayton Hamvention announced the attendance for the 2024 Hamvention, and again, it was a record-setting attendance of 35,877. Congratulations to Tim Duffy, K3LR, who's being inducted into the CQ Amateur Radio Hall of Fame in recognition to his lifetime of contributions to amateur radio service and his fellow ham radio operators. With the tremendous success of the WSJTX modes like FT8, it is now being utilized in most of the big DXpeditions. Oftentimes, it can decode signals that are barely audible and get more stations into the log. Many of these expeditions are now utilizing Fox and Hound or multi-stream software of LZ2HV. Both of these require operators working them to utilize special procedures to be successful in their FT8 contact. Oftentimes, these DX stations operate above or below the normal allocated FT8 frequencies. Because of the setup, always return the call to the DXpedition stations at least 1 kilohertz above them. Make sure you can copy their signal and not just blindly transmitting, since if you're not hearing them and decoding them properly, your call is useless. Also, make sure you are responding to them in the proper time sequence. Odd if they are transmitting even, or even if they are transmitting on odd time sequence. Operators that follow these suggestions are working rare DX stations at a growing rate. According to club log records, 50 to 80% of all DX activity is now taking place on FT8. So if you're interested in DX, get that FT8 station fine-tuned and make sure you know the ropes and operate effectively and efficiently using these suggestions. I wonder how many hams can tell you the approximate coverage area of their 2-meter signals from their station. Can you? Well, if you're interested in learning about the coverage area of your 2-meter signal, come and join the Northern Kentucky Amateur Radio Club monthly Simplex Net, held every first Sunday of the month at 6 p.m. This month on June 2nd at 6 p.m. on 146.580 Simplex. This net uses the technique of each station relaying in those that their station can communicate with on 146.580 Simplex. This method allows operators to check in from a wider range in the greater Cincinnati area. If at first you don't hear anyone, have patience and keep listening. Eventually, you will hear a station that you can work and can check you in. And perhaps you will be able to check in a station that no one else hears. The information you will gain about the coverage area of your station will be invaluable to you and also be a great resource in an emergency situation. So on June 2nd at 6 p.m., tune that 2-meter rig to 146.580 Simplex and join in on the action. A ham radio balloon was launched in Lexington, Kentucky using the call sign of AB4WS-3 on May 29th. Follow its progress on APRS.FI. Do you have a Hamshack Hotline voice over IP phone? Well, if you do, your number's probably changing. Hamshack Hotline has announced that they are converting all those 10-digit numbers to 7-digit numbers. Your new 7-digit Hamshack Hotline number is already created and active on the Hamshack Hotline servers and ready for use. To change your number to the new one, just modify your setup, removing 3 of the zeros from the middle of your number. So your number is now just 7 digits long. Then reprovision your phone. Your password will remain the same. July 1st, the 10-digit numbers will no longer be active. If you have issues, reach out to the Hamshack Hotline help staff. On May 24th, N4XM, Paul Schrader of Louisville, Kentucky, became a silent key. Paul had an electrical engineering degree from University of Louisville and was the inventor of patented X-Match antenna tuner, as well as several other patents. Paul was very active amateur radio operators. His signals are missed. On May 26, KM4's QZC, James Wesley of Somerset, Kentucky, became a silent key. James was a member of the Straight Key Century Club. Keep both of these operators, friends, and family in your prayers. The Kentucky QSO Party starts on June 1st at 1300 hours UTC and ends on June 2nd at 0100 UTC. This annual event allows Kentucky ham radio operators to get on the air for 12 hours and make worldwide contacts with the Bluegrass State. This is a great way for operators in Kentucky to generate contacts which quickly lead to awards like Worked All States and County Hunters. Many of the rare Kentucky counties are active during the event. Participating in the Kentucky QSO Party is a fun and easy. For the rules and other information, go to kyqsoparty.org. On June 1st, the Bluegrass Amateur Radio Society will be having a fox hunt where people armed with HTs and directional antennas will hunt down a fox with a 2-meter transmitter somewhere in the Lexington-Fayette County area. They'll meet at the Bar Shack at 8:30 a.m. and come back to the shack after the fox is found for pizza and fellowship. The Greater Mason County Amateur Radio Association will be having a ham radio display at the Mason County Library in downtown Maysville at 218 East 3rd Street, Maysville, Kentucky on June 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. with radios and displays set up showing what ham radio does and what it's used for. On June 3rd, 2024, at 7 p.m., the Amateur Radio Emergency Team of Northern Kentucky will meet at the Bethesda Community Church, 989 East Mount Zion Road in Independence, Kentucky. If you're interested in emergency communications, come on out. Check out KY6ET on groups.io. On June 3rd at 7 p.m., the Bluegrass Amateur Radio Society will hold their meeting at the Red Cross Building, 1450 Newtown Pike in Lexington, Kentucky, where they'll be planning the Field Day event for this year on June 22nd and 23rd. On June 8th, the Okayan Brunch Bunch will be meeting at 1 p.m. at the Montford Heights Skyline Chili, 5444 North Bend Road, just off I-74. Come on out and join them for some delicious Skyline Chili and ham radio discussion. On Saturday, June 8th at noon, the Triple Nickel Amateur Radio Society will hold their summer bash at K4JTA, Jeff's property, at 220 Blakemore Lane in Smithfield, Kentucky. There'll be music and swimming, and everyone is chipping in on the eats. If you would like to join in on the festivities, reach out to Jeff, K4JTA. On June 17th at 7 p.m., the Northern Kentucky Amateur Radio Club will meet at the Bethesda Community Church, 989 East Mount Zion Road in Independence, Kentucky. Mark Volstead, AI4BJ, will be telling us all about the wonderful world of amateur radio contesting. Many of the clubs and groups are getting their field day event organized for June 22nd and 23rd, and the Ukiah Amateur Radio Society is certainly one of them. They'll be moving to a new location this year and have been scoping out that location. Think it is going to be an even better site than the previous one. If you're interested in joining the Ukiah Field Day group, reach out to Eric, N8YC, who is organizing the event. The Bluegrass Amateur Radio Society will be setting up at the Hile Farm Park, 3551 Briar Hill Road in Lexington, Kentucky. The Northern Kentucky Amateur Radio Club will host Field Day at the Lincoln Ridge Park in Independence, Kentucky. The Field Day coordinator, Michael, KE8 PLM, is collecting information on resources and volunteers for Field Day. If you're interested in the NKARC Field Day, go to k4co.org and sign up. A great event to volunteer for is Paddlefest, where amateur radio operators provide communications for safety and logistics at the big Paddlefest event on the Ohio River. This year, Paddlefest will be held on August 3rd, 2024. There are positions both on the river and on the shore. If you'd like to volunteer for this fun event, email Rick, KD4PYR, at KD4PYR@ARRL.net. The Air Force Marathon is looking for a few good hams to volunteer and provide communications assistance for the event on Saturday, September 21st in the area of the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. For more information or to volunteer, email Bob, N8ADO, at afm.hams@gmail.com.
Hamfests.
June 1st is the Fulton County Amateur Radio Club Summer Hamfest at the Roth Family Woodlot, 105 Hill Avenue in Tedrow, Ohio. Talking on the 147.195 repeater. On July 20th is the 3rd annual Ashtabula Hamfest at the Pioneer Picnic, 1809 Middle Road in Pierpoint, Ohio. Talking on the 146.895 repeater with a PL of 141.3. On July 21st is the Van Wert Hamfest at the Van Wert County Fairgrounds, 1055 South Washington Street in Van Wert, Ohio. For more information, go to w8fy.org.
Are you looking to upgrade your license? Do you have someone else that's interested in the hobby? Here are some upcoming exam opportunities.
The Milford Amateur Radio Club holds amateur radio testing on the third Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. at the Miami Township Civic Center, 6101 Meyer Drive in Milford, Ohio. Please pre-register at milfordhamradio.org. The Dayton Amateur Radio Association has exams frequently. For their exam schedule, email exams.w8bi@gmail.com. On June 1st, the Silver Creek Amateur Radio Association will offer an amateur radio testing session at 10 a.m. at the Sharon Center, UMC, 6407 Ridge Road in Wadsworth, Ohio. Pre-registration at w8wky.org/license-exam. June 8th, the Westchester Amateur Radio Association will hold an amateur radio exam session at 10 a.m. at the Voice of America Museum, 8070 Tylersville Road in Westchester, Ohio. Pre-registration is required at hamstudy.org/session/WC8VOA. On June 8th at 10 a.m., there'll be an amateur radio license exam session at the Georgetown Police Department, 550 Bourbon Street in Georgetown, Kentucky. Please pre-register at hamstudy.org/session/WX4GPS. On June 10th at 6:30 p.m., the Cuyahoga Falls Amateur Radio Club is having an amateur radio exam session at the Cuyahoga Falls Public Library, 2025 2nd Street in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Pre-register by emailing education@cfarc.org. On June 17th, the Northern Kentucky Amateur Radio Club will host an amateur radio exam session at 5:30 p.m. at the Bethesda Community Church, 989 East Mount Zion Road in Independence, Kentucky. You must register by emailing Mark Volstead, AI4BJ at MVOLSTAD@TWC.com. On June 25th at 6 p.m., the amateur radio testing session will be held at Anderson County Extension Building. Use the rear entrance, lower level, 1026 County Park Road in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. For more information, contact Brian Carter, KI4TLW at 502-545-0376. On July 13th, the Westchester Amateur Radio Association will hold an amateur radio exam session at 10 a.m. at the Voice of America Museum, 8070 Tylersville Road in Westchester, Ohio. Please pre-register at hamstudy.org/session/WC8VOA. On July 13th at 10 a.m., an amateur radio exam session will be held at the Clark County Emergency Operations Center, 200 Maryland Drive in Winchester, Kentucky. Please pre-register at hamstudy.org/session/AC4YD. For more information, contact Darrell Epperson, AC4YD at 859-771-1834. On July 23rd at 6 p.m., an amateur radio testing session will be held at the Anderson County Extension Building. Use the rear entrance, lower level, 1026 County Park Road in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. For more information, contact Brian Carter, KI4TLW at 502-545-0376. On Saturday, July 27th at 10 a.m., the Wilderness Road Amateur Radio Club will sponsor an amateur radio license exam session at the American Legion post number 46, 45 Spears Lane in Danville, Kentucky. Pre-register at hamstudy.org/sessions. For more information, contact Harold Miller, AF6MB, at 541-602-6535. Special thanks to this week's content contributors: KE4WA, KY4GW, WB8YYS, KD8ZLD, K9HIO, N8LAR, K4NKU.
If you have something you think other amateur radio operators in the area would be interested in, send the information or your recorded audio file attached in an email to ab4ws.radio@gmail.com.
Covering your amateur radio news and information in the greater Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana tri-state area. This is Jack Prindle, AB4WS in Big Bone, Kentucky.